more to marketing.
Welcome to More2Marketing, a podcast on marketing, product, and everything in between. I'm your host, Susan, and today we're going to be talking about traditional advertising. Traditional advertising has been around a really long time. Highly recommend you check out my ancient marketing podcast that I did because that goes through the history of marketing and where some of this came about. But we're going to be talking about more modern times today. So traditional advertising has been around in its modern form for a number of decades and includes methods like print ads, television commercials, and billboards. While many companies still use traditional advertising, there are pros and cons. That's what I want to talk about today. In this podcast, we're going to explore those, and also we're going to give some examples to illustrate the points as well. So, what are the pros? So with traditional advertising, there are pros, a whole pile of them, but we'll just focus on the top 5. So the first one is it reaches a really wide audience, and that can be very beneficial, particularly when you're building a brand, and also if your product actually goes out to masses and is for the masses. So traditional advertising can reach a large audience, and this includes people who may not actually use social media and digital platforms. So there's still a whole pile of people that shy away from those or don't go onto those daily. This is particularly true with television commercials, as there's still millions of people across the world that do watch TV, and even some of them are single broadcasting when we're thinking about America. Number 2, tangibility. Print ads and billboards can be physically touched and seen, which can leave a lasting impression on potential customers. I love some of the things I've seen Media come out and do. I've also seen a whole pile of different types of shopping center light posters where you can interact with them. And particularly one that hits my heart is those ones that are for charity where you can actually go up and donate as well at the same time or purchase it. One of my really memorable campaigns that I saw years ago was the first time people were starting to use QR codes. And one of the universities was using that in train stations for people. It was around universities, naturally. And instead of people having to go into the bookshops to buy their textbooks, they could actually QR code them and have them sent to their rooms. Another one was overseas in Asia, shopping center during a train station. Instead of having to go line up in the supermarket while you're waiting for your train, there was big pictures of supermarket shelves. So you could go along and scan QR codes to actually buy your milk or whatever else you wanted and have them sent to your house. So tangibility there and interaction is a big piece of traditional advertising. 3, brand awareness itself. Traditional advertising can help build brand awareness over time. Seeing the same ad repeatedly can help people remember the brand or the product. Credibility. Number 4, traditional advertising is often seen as more credible than digital advertising. Yeah, this was up for debate, but it's definitely up there in one of the top 5. People may be more likely to trust a printed ad or a television commercial than an online ad, particularly when there's a whole pile of perceived fake ones and scam ones that are out there all the time in the digital world. How do you vet them? The hope is that if something's on TV, on a reputable station, or printed within a reputable newspaper, that it has been vetted. So there's that trust factor already built in if you're going to appear there, particularly nowadays. Number 5, local targeting. Traditional advertising can be targeted to specific local markets. Digital can too. But it can be made more efficient in ways to reach the customer, particularly in specific geographic areas where they're not always using digital. So think about people in shopping centers walking past a certain location, or you're driving a certain way, or on the train, you're actually getting these visual cues quite often. Naturally though, with everything that's got a pro, you got a con. So traditional advertising does have its fair share of cons. So we'll go through the top 5. High cost. Traditional advertising can be expensive, particularly when you're making television commercials and print ads. Think about Super Bowl. We know they cost millions of dollars for the spot alone, let alone the budget to create those amazing ads. Small businesses just might not be able to have the budget to compete with these larger companies or be able to get their message out there, particularly in those very high expensive medias. So number 2 is limited analytics. Traditional advertising offers limited data and analytics compared to digital. Digital is amazing when you can be able to embed pics and cookies in the old world. or have it connected into your Google Analytics or whatever system you're using to actually track what they're doing on your website and following ads that you may put out there. Traditional just doesn't offer that to that depth, to that one-to-one ratio. So it can be actually really difficult to measure the effectiveness of a print ad or billboard. So you really got to think, how can I track the effectiveness? How can I show that this is working? And that's where campaigning and having a really effective marketing plan will help you, and the marketing calendar. 3, traditional advertising can be less targeted than digital advertising, depending on what you're doing. Like TV commercials and billboards, they've really got broad audiences. And regardless of whether they are interested in the product or not, they're being shown it. And we know that we only see about 3% of what's out there being advertised when we're walking around. So you really want to have that cut through. 4, limited interactivity. It's a passive media, and it doesn't allow for interaction with customers in most of the ways. It's usually one way, except for the couple of examples I've given. But usually you don't get that immediate feedback, which does help with iterations for digital. And the last one is lack of flexibility. Traditional advertising campaigns require really detailed planning, specific planning, and lead time, making it difficult to adjust or pivot if you need to for the market or the customer needs. One good thing is usually you have time that you can pull something if something happens, but sometimes that time elapses and you're forced to have that printed in wherever shape or form it is, and hopefully it doesn't cause too many issues to your brand. So I'll just go through some examples of some pros and cons of traditional advertising. I love giving examples. They really illustrate the point as well. So our first one is Coca-Cola. Share a Coke campaign. So Coca-Cola printed a whole pile of ads and also had billboard features, personalizing bottles with customers' names, helping to build brand awareness and increase sales. And I know for a fact, a lot of people that went out there searching for their name, putting them onto digital to share and to help them in the hunt for that physical advertising campaign piece on the Coke itself. Very clever concept, really tangible, able to touch as well, and very different type of campaign to ones that we've seen before that time. So it was really nice seeing those billboards out there and personalizing it, and then actually being able to go out and be part of it yourself. 2, Apple's Get a Mac campaign. Apple's television commercials featured a personification of a Mac computer and a PC, helping to build brand loyalty and credibility, and they were hilarious. The cut through of those with the now famous actor was actually really brilliant at the time. It actually made you want to listen and made you want to stop. And humor is a great way to cut through, particularly on those traditional mediums where you've got broad mass audience and you really want to be able to make a statement. So Apple did a great job there. Number 3, Nike's Just Do It campaign. Nike's done many campaigns over the years, and they do use a lot of traditional forms. This one used print ads and billboards featuring athletes with inspirational messages. And at that time, they really cut through as well because it was the right personas being used and the messaging was spot on. And it helped build that awareness and credibility at the time for the Just Do It campaign. 4, I'm Loving It. McDonald's, of course. McDonald's television commercials featuring catchy jingles and positive messaging really help it to stand out and have that brand appeal with the big M. It is unmistakable McDonald's, and naturally they do have a lot of budget to put into these too. Number 5, last but not least, we're going to do a Super Bowl one, so we'll go back to Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola Super Bowl commercials featuring diverse and inclusive messaging. This one was a cut through using that medium to really build a brand awareness and credibility while reaching a wider audience. Positive and negatives that came with that piece, but it was definitely a use of that medium that cut through traditional just trying to sell. So there you have it, the pros and cons of traditional advertising, along with 5 examples to illustrate the points. While traditional advertising can be effective in reaching a wide audience and build brand awareness and credibility, it also has limitations compared to digital advertising. Ultimately, the best advertising approach will depend on specific needs and goals for your business. And you should always look at your marketing mix and see what to include. I highly recommend not just relying on one form. See what works best for you. Do some tests. I love a good test and learn. Make sure that everything's measurable and just make sure the message resonates with what your brand is. That's the worst thing you can do, is not have it resonate. So this was a podcast on what is traditional marketing, giving some examples, the 5 pros, 5 cons, and some examples. Hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow More to Marketing for more podcasts.
More to Marketing.